Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Inner Conquest, the world's greatest modern metaphysics channel. I'm your host, Jacob Edens, and today we're going to be talking about what it means to make the break. So when you have something in your experience that has been bugging you for a long time, right? That has been in your belief system an obstacle that is not something that for you personally, you feel you can overcome, it's time to make the decision now to destroy that reality forever. What happens a lot of times when you start to do law of assumption or you start to do these different processes is you kind of toy around with them back and forth. But as you go back and forth, you are an oscillating frequency. And what it means, if you want to take a health reference, what being healthy means is to be whole, right? So if you are whole, you are not fragmented. You are not dispersed. You are one thing. So when you change through, whether you want to call it an identity shift or practicing law of assumption or whatever type of law of attraction, whatever type of lexicon or lens you want to look at it through, it really comes down to a decision. And a decision broken apart means to decide, right? So if you look at words like regicide, that means to kill the king. To decide means to kill all other potentialities. So when you kill all other potentialities, what you are essentially doing is you are focusing on one, because to focus on something means to have selective ignorance, meaning that you ignore everything but one thing, right? So if I focus on something, I am deciding to either think that or focus on it, right? And what I think, I become, and what I focus on, I expand. So through these virtues of my thought process, I am able to decide on a wanted reality, okay? So what happens is if you oscillate between two realities back and forth, neither of them fully either emerge or dissipate. They convolute, and this is what happens when you get mixed signals from a specific person, or you get a little bit of money, but it stops. It's because of the oscillation of frequency between the two different realities that you're focusing your awareness on. So in order to have the ultimate experience of exactly what you want, you have to be that thing entirely and completely. In order to be something entirely and completely, you are going to cut off all of the other alternatives, right? So as you choose to embody that thing, as you choose to think as if you have that thing, as you choose to, hold feeling states of having that thing, or you choose to revise different situations as if they happen the way you want to, all of these things are tools that help you build the internal reality that will be reflected outward through your focus. So what you want to understand is a couple of different things, right? When you decide to be something, how do you navigate circumstances that unfold that are not what you would want, right? So say you say, I have $100 in the bank account, and then the next day, $40 comes out and you're left with 60. And you're like, what the heck? I got $100, right? How does that work? Well, you have to understand who you are. You are the pilot of the body. So to extrapolate that into larger terms, you are the player in the game. So when you are the reality that creates the reality, right? You talk to a lot of law of attraction people, they say you create your own reality. Well, what does that mean, right? What that means is that what you focus on and what you observe through different capacities have different effects on the external world, right? Because of things like if you look at the split wave particle test, or you look at the observer effect, or these different factors that have been observed, you're influencing things that you are looking at, whether you know it or not, right? So that's why in Christianity, there's a lot of don't judge, right? It's not because like you're condemning things or whatever. It's because when you judge something a certain way, you are laying down from an energetic standpoint a magnet frequency that thing either has to show up as or cannot come into your experience, right? So if you have a perception of a person always being rude, then that person has to show up as rude, right? You have that frequency set in your bandwidth, and you're constantly colliding with different aspects of reality all day, every day. So as you run into different things, the way that you run into them is through the frequency that you're emitting. So the goal is, when you want to change something, you want to emit a very specific and dominant frequency that is in alignment with having what you want. Meaning that if I want $100, I have to set my tuner to being at a frequency of having that now, regardless of what's happening externally, because everything that happens externally is moving in a continuum, meaning that I'm constantly running into people, I'm constantly going places, I'm constantly receiving things, right? So throughout all of that chaos and manipulation of this external world, how do I control what I want, right? Because there's too much going on outside. So how do I set the dial or grab the controller and basically put the inputs that I want in a way that gets me what I want? And that's all done through frequency, right? Everything vibrates and oscillates. And frequency is just a perspective of looking at things that is useful for certain ways of describing reality. It's not the ultimate reality, right? But it is a lexicon that we can use, because everybody knows what a radio is, and everybody knows what different stations are, and everybody knows that if you change the dial to a different station, you get a different thing, right? So by really understanding that your identity, if you can crystallize having an identity that you want that is perpetuated internally and essentially fed off of the wanted feelings, emotions, and thoughts of having what you want, you can become a self-persistent being, meaning that you can rely on yourself. You become independent and sovereign because of your ability to nourish yourself through emotional states of consciousness that are of your choice, right? A lot of people have addictions to states of consciousness that are unwanted because they don't understand that they get to pick and choose where they place their awareness. Or if they do, in the beginning of understanding that they get to pick and choose where they put their awareness, still have a dominant experience or a dominant emotional state that is clouding, usually 100% of the time, that has fear in it, that essentially limits their capacity to outthink that reality, right? So when you have those types of situations, what you want to understand is you want to get off that bandwidth. You want to get off that frequency, because through virtue of your thought and your focus, you are putting things into your electromagnetic field. What is an electromagnetic field? Well, let's break it apart. Electricity, magnet, field of energy, right? So it's a big space of electric magnets all around you. The way that you program, if you want to use that term, your electromagnet field, is by thinking the thoughts that you want. But you want to think thoughts from states of having what you want. You don't want to think of states. That's another caveat that's important to understand. If I'm thinking about, having $1 million, it's different than thinking about what it would be like to, observe myself having it. It's first person, it's I have it right now, and it's meant to be in alignment with an element of what you would consider feeling real. And that's different for everybody. That can trip people up too, because they're like, how do I know how it would feel real if I've never had it before? And it's a valid point. You have to persist in an assumption that you have that thing now, and become so crystallized in the knowing or the gnosis of you having that thing from an internal standpoint, that you have completely sold your internal self that this is the wavelength that you set. It's really easy to explain if you think about how you have your name, right? If I have my name as Jacob and somebody tries to tell me I'm Kevin, my frequency is so set, my identity is so locked on this name that it won't even allow suggestions, right? And some people have that identity with negative things, right? They feel like a loser. Nobody can tell them they're a winner. They block it, right? So you want to get that same, what you would call crystallization and identity for really powerful, good things. Like, I make money every single day in larger and larger amounts. I am supremely healthy. I am feeling and looking and being the way that I want to be from a position of power, right? And once you have that type of identity really locked in, you have your defensive mechanisms that'll come up and basically block any frequency that's not in alignment with that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. The coaching and stuff is in the link tree. Feel free to check that out. If you want to do the Spartan one, watch the little video. You can see what's in it at the bottom, and then you can sign up through the link tree and all that stuff. Most important thing I had to say today, let's go conquer, and I'll see you in the next one.